Welcome into Royals Postseason today, your one-stop shop on all Royals social media channels to be able to follow your boys in blue. Game one of the wild card between the Royals and the Baltimore Orioles. Welcome in, everybody, to Royals Postseason today. I think we've seen you before. You've seen us, Joel Goldberg, Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery. We are so excited for the playoffs. It's been 9 years, Monty, getting ready for Game 1 against the Baltimore Orioles. Thoughts as the Royals embark on this new journey?
Well, I think for me, this is where the fun really begins. I mean, you've worked so hard to get here. It all goes back to spring training, a lot of moves in the offseason to turn the things around from what we saw last year to where we are now. Just truly remarkable.
This has been an incredible season to go from 106 losses to a playoff berth. And like any baseball team, the ups and downs, the roller coaster. And it felt like that roller coaster was going straight down when Vinnie broke his thumb, expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks. But here we are about a month since the injury, and the Royals released the big news today that Vinnie is active. He is on the playoff roster. A minor miracle, perhaps. It's been building to this, though. And Vinnie, the Pasquatch, spoke to the media in Baltimore earlier today.
We put in a lot of work for this. You know, it's a kind of a special personal day just because, you know, we finally got the green light. I had my eyes set on a little bit earlier than this, but despite all arguing, that was not realistic. So we did everything we could, and we're here now, and the rehab's not over, but the games can start, so we're excited about it. As far as, like, actual hitting, I had been doing one-handed swings probably, I don't know, as soon as I got my cast off, just to keep my body rotating, because it was always, I said it in that, when we spoke in Kansas City, I did not believe my season was over, so we treated it as such. I kept, you know, I got in the cage, I'd run, still playing catch, not physically catching the ball, but throwing the ball. So kind of like a quarterback where they couldn't throw it back to me, but I could throw it. And then I think we got into two-hand swinging, I don't know, 8-10 days ago. And then every day it was just dependent on how I was feeling. And every day that I felt good, we were able to progress it a little bit more with the doctor and the surgeon's clearance.
It is so great to hear Vinnie. We know the enthusiasm he's going to have. Monty, I mean, the question becomes, you know, how healthy is he? J.J. Picollo said the other day he can't hurt himself long term. There's no risk like that. But to have that bat back in the lineup, what does it mean? Well,
I think we saw so much earlier in the year what Vinnie means to this lineup. It lengthens the lineup. It gives protection to Bobby Witt Jr. It gives protection to Salvador Perez. It does a lot of things for this team that you really need. And when you have a number 3 hitter like a Vinnie in that lineup, the pitchers are aware of it.
Yeah, and now it's not just a matter of having Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. Yes, I know that there's a whole roster, but when you've got 3 guys that essentially are 100 RBI players, and Vinnie was going to be getting there, he ended up at 98 before the injury. That's one more serious batter that the Orioles need to deal with. Let's take a little bit of a comparison, or look at a comparison between these two teams. It's hard, Monty, I think, to be able to look at the head-to-head because they played 6 games back in April, all of them at Kauffman Stadium at Camden Yards. And while Baltimore won 4 of the 6, they were only separated by a difference of 2 runs. But when you look at the stats, very similar as well. Maybe a little bit better pitching for the Royals, a little bit better hitting, at least numbers-wise, for the Orioles.
Well, I think if you look at these two teams, pitching is going to be the key element. And for me, starting pitching could be the difference maker in this. And I favor the Royals in that department. So going in, yeah, a lot of similarities. You got 2 great shortstops, 2 young shortstops. You got 2 outstanding catchers. You got a couple pitchers on the mound today for today's game, Cy Young candidates. So it's going to be a great matchup. And we know how even these teams are. We lost in Baltimore early in the year. We could have won all 3 of those games.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There was that 5-hour rain delay in the finale that the Royals ended up losing, but they go in with a hot bullpen. Monty mentioned the rotation and a lot of energy and momentum for this team that as of Sunday afternoon knew they were going somewhere, but they didn't know where it was until after the game when they beat Atlanta and Detroit ended up losing and they found out they were headed to Baltimore. They worked out yesterday and some of the players, coaching staff spoke with the media.
These guys in this clubhouse are so resilient. They bounce back. They really do the best job I've ever seen of turning the page from one day to the next. even in that streak, we lost a lot of close games that were heartbreaking. They come back the next day with the same effort, the same energy, the same intensity. And that's what I think is really special about this group is the resiliency, the day-to-day fortitude that they show.
Excited to be back, I was waiting to be back to playoff on my last 10 years. So super excited for the group that we have.
Yeah, it's amazing just with the team that we have in that clubhouse, how close we are, and just how special it is. And so, yeah, this is something you want to create something new because in the past, everyone in Kansas City has talked about the 2015, 2014 team, and so kind of we want to create our own legacy. And so we've been able to learn from that team, those guys too, and with Salvi being on those teams and everyone, so it's going to be try to create our own little legacy.
It's fun to see those press conferences because what happens as the Royals move into these games and go longer and longer, more media shows up, more national media. We're used to seeing these guys every day. Now they're getting that national exposure. Although I think, Monty, that everybody at this point should know a little something about Bobby Witt Jr. Maybe not as much as we know, maybe not as much as all of you Royals fans know, but now we've got center stage for Bobby Witt Jr. And oh, by the way, they've got a pretty good shortstop on their side, too, with Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, and Gunnar Henderson, he's going to be an MVP at some point. We know that. Bobby Witt Jr., he's going to be an MVP at some point. Two great young shortstops that are really going to kind of help maybe carry their team to wherever their destination may be during this season. Both have risen to the occasion, both outstanding players. Probably a little more power from a Gunnar Henderson, but not much. And Bobby Witt Jr., we know he's got all the tools necessary to be whatever he needs to be in that moment.
Well, he's coming off of an epic season, and we'll see what happens in the postseason. But let's remind everybody that Bobby Witt Jr. was just the first American League batting champion for the Royals since 1990, George Brett. George did it 3 times. Willie Wilson did it once. George told me the other day he was shocked that no one had done it since. He thought maybe Carlos Beltran or someone would have done it. But Bobby Witt Jr. with an epic season. And you talk about the comparison of these two shortstops and how Gunnar Henderson has more power. But you look at the comparison, and by the way, even down at the bottom there of WAR, both of these guys incredibly valuable. But Bobby Witt Jr. statistically significantly better.
Well, for me, Bobby Witt Jr. is a more complete player. He's a guy that if you're going to start a baseball team, Bobby Witt Jr. is a type player that you're going to start that team with because of all he brings to the table. Not just on the field and the numbers, but what he is as a person and as a leader.
Right. There's just no one that compares to Bobby and the skill set. That's true of Aaron Judge. That's true of Shohei Ohtani. He's his own unique player. There's no one else out there like him. There may not be anyone else out there that is like Salvador Perez in terms of a 34-year-old who is having a renaissance season and everything he does for this team on the field, behind the plate, in the clubhouse, the captain. And they, by the way, the Orioles, have themselves quite a catcher as well in Adley Rutschman. There's another interesting matchup.
Yeah, and we talk about the comparison and the similarities between the shortstops. How about the differences between the catchers? Rutschman is a guy who really kind of helped turn the Orioles franchise around. A couple years ago, they had lost over 100 games. He came in, made a huge difference for the Baltimore Orioles. We know Salvador Perez has done this for so many years for this Royals team, and looking forward to what the veteran catcher is going to do. He'll be a difference maker.
Well, both of those catchers, Rutschman and Perez, will be catching excellent starting pitchers today. And that's what you'd expect if you're able to line things up. And the Royals, fortunately, were able to line things up and not have to burn a Cole Reagans on the final game of the season. That was nice that they clinched on Friday, which means you've got Cole Reagans set to go. What a season he has had. His first real full season in the big leagues, his first full season as a Kansas City Royal, and he got the opening day nod. He got the All-Star game, and now he gets the opening nod for Game 1.
Yeah, and I think it's very ironic that now here we are starting the postseason. You've got exactly the same 3 pitchers, if needed, to start the wild card. You've got Reagans, you've got a chance for Lugo, and then possibly Michael Wacha. So the pitching is there. There's no doubt about that. And to me, the Royals starting pitching, that will be the difference maker. And that, to me, gives this Royals team an advantage in this short 3-game series.
Depending on how you're comparing these pitchers, to me, Reagans is statistically a little bit better, certainly with all of the strikeouts, but Corbin Burns is a former Cy Young Award winner. Corbin Burns had a lower ERA. I'm not as worried about the win-loss record. A lot of that's out of their control. But what are the challenges in facing Burns today?
Well, Burns is a guy that's going to throw strikes. He's got outstanding stuff, tremendous cutter. He can throw the cutter to both the left and the right-handed batters, in and out. He's got tremendous command of his pitches. Here's a guy that had some issues with home run balls earlier in his career. He's corrected that, but he's a bulldog on the mound. He knows how to get outs.
All right, the Royals will have their work cut out for them. We now know who the 26 players are going to be. We told you at the top of the show that Vinnie Pasquantino is on the roster. He is ready to go. That in itself is incredible. I think as you look at this roster, Monty, the interesting element is that the Royals went with a large bench, 15 hitters and 11 pitchers. That could be difficult to do, but in a short series, 2 or 3 games, and with some of the long relievers that they have, converted starters or starters that are in the bullpen for the moment, like a Brady Singer, like a Michael Lorenzen, Matt Quatraro has a lot of resources.
Yeah, and those guys, the Lorenzens and the Singers, they give the Royals that opportunity to go with the bench, go with that expanded bench, because they know they've got coverage in that bullpen. But I think we saw during the kind of the last week or so of the season how Matt Quatraro managed his team. He was managing like every game was the most important game of the season, which it was, because they needed to get in. And I think the way that he used his bench, we'll see even that more during this short 3-game series. He's certainly a lot in his arsenal to go to.
It allows you to have a Paul DeYoung on the bench if you want a little bit of pop with maybe a home run swing, a guy that can go deep. It enables you to have Garrett Hampson on the bench as a backup for center field, and of course the very speedy and valuable Dyrone Blanco as a pinch runner late, not to mention guys like a Brady Singer. I'm interested to see Brady Singer out of the bullpen, what that might look like. As we wrap things up here, how about a quick X factor, someone that could be that difference maker?
Well, to me, it's going to be Salvador Perez. If Salvador Perez does anything like we've seen him do in previous postseason appearances back in 2014 and 15, he will be the chance for the Royals really to make a difference for this team. Got to get some protection for him. Got to do things around him. But Salvador Perez, we've seen, has the ability to carry this team.
All right, is everybody ready? We're ready. It's been 9 years in the making. Salvador Perez is still here. Otherwise, it's a new cast of characters and one that is really put together and memorable 2024, and now they're just getting started. Game 1 of the wild card, Royals and Orioles. We're so excited to be here. We'll be here with you throughout the journey. For Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery, I'm Joel Goldberg. Enjoy the game and go Royals.